My name is Tiffany. The tension in the dining room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I sat there, my hands tightly gripping the handle of the oxblood leather briefcase under the table. It was Easter dinner at my mom's house, and 22 of my relatives were seated around the table. The ham on the table had gone cold, and the scalloped potatoes were starting to congeal. My sister, Olivia, the golden child in our family who could seemingly do no wrong, stood up, holding a thick manila folder. With a sickly, sweet smile, she announced, "It's time everyone finally knew what this selfish, __, did to our dying father." My mom, Linda, nodded with a visible look of relief. Uncle Henry, a retired bank auditor with a sharp eye for details, froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. For 6 long years, the whole family had believed I was the monster who manipulated Dad in his hospital bed, forged documents, and stole $120,000 from his retirement savings while he fought for his life. They'd cut me out completely, calling me a thief, a betrayer, and a heartless daughter who abandoned him. What they didn't know was that I was a successful estate planning attorney. I'd kept every single receipt, every blocked letter, and every piece of irrefutable proof. And they had no idea that the man they thought I'd destroyed was about to walk through that front door and turn everything upside down. Let me rewind a bit. Our family has always had a complicated dynamic. I'm 32, and Olivia is 37. Growing up, Olivia was the one who got all the attention. She was a beauty queen, winning local pageants and always in the spotlight. In contrast, I was more focused on my studies. I was determined to make something of myself, so I went to a top-tier law school and landed a job at a well-known law firm. My parents, David and Linda, were both hard-working people. Dad was a factory worker who'd saved every penny for his retirement. Mom was a stay-at-home mom in the early days but later took up a part-time job at a local library. They were traditional in their values, and in their eyes, Olivia could do no wrong. I used to visit my parents every other weekend and call them 3 times a week. I lived just 30 minutes away, working in the city center. Meanwhile, Olivia lived 2 hours away but was always portrayed as the more dedicated daughter. Back in 2016, Olivia's first business venture, a boutique clothing store, failed. She and her husband, Ethan, had over-invested, and they needed $40,000 to keep it afloat. Dad and Mom decided to take out a second mortgage on their house to help. I was in my final year of law school at the time and only found out about it months later. I offered to help repay the debt, but Mom said it was handled and not to worry about family business. Years later, through a private investigator's report, I learned that the $40,000 was never repaid. Our parents' mortgage ballooned from $95,000 to $135,000, and Olivia seemed to have absorbed the lesson that in our family, her word would always be taken over the facts. The family photo wall in our childhood home told the story clearly. There were at least 25 photos of Olivia's life, her beauty pageant wins, her wedding to Ethan, and pictures of her 3 kids. In contrast, there were only 5 photos of me, my high school graduation, my law school acceptance letter, one Christmas photo where I looked a bit lost, and my law school graduation with Dad's arm around me. In 2020, Dad got sick. He'd been a smoker in his younger days, and it caught up with him in the form of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and then congestive heart failure. Olivia immediately moved him to her place temporarily to help Mom manage his appointments. I continued to visit every other weekend and call regularly, but Olivia's narrative that I'm the one who's here stuck with the family. I was really good at my job. I'd built a solid career helping families protect their legacies and prevent financial exploitation. But in my family, my competence was seen as coldness. Olivia used this against me, saying I only cared about paperwork and legalities and couldn't just be a daughter. In October 2021, Dad was admitted to the hospital due to a severe exacerbation of his conditions. I rushed to the hospital straight from work, still wearing my suit. Olivia was already there, playing the role of the dutiful daughter for the nurses. Mom looked exhausted and scared, like she was trying to make herself as small as possible in the room. Ethan was in the waiting room, on his phone, talking about some real estate deal. Dad was lucid but tired. He asked me to have power of attorney because he knew I understood the legal stuff and wouldn't panic if something happened to him. I was torn. I wanted to help, but I also knew that as an estate planning attorney, it could create a conflict of interest. I called my managing partner, Sarah, right away for ethics guidance. She confirmed my concerns and advised me to decline. So, on October 15th, I drafted a formal declination letter, had it notarized at the hospital's patient services office, and gave copies to Dad, my firm, and Mom's address where Dad's mail went. Dad understood and kissed my forehead, saying, "You're the good one, Tiffany." But 2 weeks later, my world came crashing down. I started getting strange responses. When I called Dad's cell, it went straight to voicemail. I tried Mom's house line, and Olivia answered, telling me Dad didn't want to talk to me and that I should never call again. The next day, I got an email from Dad's address, saying he trusted me with his financial future, but I'd manipulated his illness and stolen $120,000. He said he didn't want any contact with me. I was in shock. I tried to explain, sending emails with my declination letter attached, but they bounced back. When I went to my parents' house, Mom wouldn't let me in. She said Olivia had shown her the bank statements with my name on the withdrawals and accused me of lying. Over the next few weeks, Olivia built a perfect narrative. She told the family I'd manipulated Dad while he was sedated, convinced him to sign the power of attorney, and then systematically drained his retirement account. She showed selective bank records with my forged name and a witness statement from Ethan claiming he'd seen me pressure Dad in the hospital. The family believed her. I was cut off completely. But I didn't give up. I started documenting everything. I sent letters to Dad every week at first, then monthly. I used certified mail whenever I could afford it, keeping records of every delivery. I had 63 letters in total, each one filled with love and a plea for him to understand the truth. As time went on, I focused on my work. I got promoted to junior partner in 2022 and then to senior partner in 2024. But in my personal life, I felt like I was living in a void. I checked obituaries weekly, terrified that I'd find out Dad had died and no one had told me. In 2023, I decided to hire a private investigator, Jack. He was a retired detective with years of experience in financial crime. I paid him $15,000, not for legal action but for the truth. Jack delivered an 85-page report in March 2024. It detailed everything: Olivia's forged power of attorney, the pattern of withdrawals matching her major purchases, and the IP address trace showing that Dad's emails were sent from her home network. I also hired a forensic accountant, Maria. Her job was to trace every dollar of the $120,000. She found that on November 8, 2021, $30,000 was withdrawn from Dad's account, and on November 9, the same amount was wired to Ethan's real estate company. On November 12, $45,000 was withdrawn, and on November 15, it was used as a down payment for Olivia's new BMW. I had all the proof I needed, but I had no access to Dad. I kept sending letters, hoping one day he'd read them. Then, 3 weeks before Easter, everything changed. A social worker named Emily found a box in Dad's closet during a routine inventory. The box was filled with all 63 letters I'd sent him over the years. She showed the letters to Dad, and he spent hours reading them. He was furious when he realized what Olivia had done. He reached out to me, and his voice on the phone after 6 years of silence was both rough and comforting. He told me he was coming to the Easter dinner with Emily and that I shouldn't let Olivia open that folder before he arrived. Back in the present, as Olivia stood there, opening the folder and starting to pull out forged documents, I held my breath. She passed around papers, claiming they were proof of my guilt. Cousins murmured, and Aunt Helen looked at me with a mix of pity and disgust. But then, the front door opened. Dad, 66 years old, thin and with an oxygen cannula in his nose, walked in, pushing a small portable oxygen tank on a wheeled cart. The room went dead silent. Mom dropped her fork, and the sound echoed through the room. Olivia's face turned deathly pale. Dad walked closer and said firmly, "Olivia, put that folder down." Uncle Henry stood up so quickly his chair scraped the floor. I stood up and made my way towards Dad. Olivia tried to block my path, saying Dad was being manipulated again, but Dad's simple command, "Move," was enough to make her step aside. Dad pulled me into a hug and whispered, "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you." I whispered back, "You didn't know." Then, Dad addressed the room. For 6 years, Olivia told me Tiffany had stolen my money and abandoned me. But 3 weeks ago, Emily found 63 letters from Tiffany in my closet. Letters I never knew existed because Olivia hid them. I lifted my briefcase onto the table and opened it. I took out my formal declination letter first. "This is my formal declination of power of attorney, dated October 15, 2021, notarized at the hospital," I said, my voice steady. I passed it to Uncle Henry to examine. I then presented all the evidence, the private investigator's report, the forensic accountant's analysis, the bank security footage showing Olivia making the withdrawals, and the certified mail receipts proving I'd been trying to reach Dad. The evidence was overwhelming. Olivia's last defense crumbled. She broke down, admitting that she'd needed the money because Ethan's business was failing. She'd thought she could pay it back, but things got out of control, and it was easier to blame me. I offered her a choice: confess everything to the state attorney, return the remaining money, sell her BMW, and make monthly payments until she'd repaid at least half. She also had to agree to supervised zero contact with Dad unless he specifically requested otherwise. If not, I'd file a criminal complaint. She agreed, and as the dust settled, I realized that after 6 years of pain and suffering, the truth had finally come out. But the road to healing our family would be a long one. Dad moved in with me after Easter, and we slowly started to rebuild our relationship. I'm still not sure if I'll ever be able to forgive Olivia, or if my relationship with Mom will ever be the same. But I have the memories of those last few months with Dad, and I know that in the end, the truth always prevails.